Hey kids, it's Mr. Fly here, hope you're well, and welcome back to the occasional series here on the channel I'm calling Your Questions Answered, and there's a clue in the title about what it's about. Basically, I'm answering your questions, so thank you very much indeed to everybody that submitted a question following episode 1 of this series. I've got absolutely loads of questions to go through. I'm not going to be able to go through absolutely everyone because we'll be here for absolutely hours, but I'll go through as many as I can, and don't despair. If I don't get to your question this time, we'll have another Your Questions Answered in the future, and I might well get to your question at that point, so do not despair. But yeah, thanks very much indeed for sending those in. Oh, I suppose we should roll the credits. Right, there you are, back again. Excellent. All right, so let's crack on then with the questions. Let's see if we can get through about 20 or so. First one comes from Bandit Man UK. Richard, hello Richard. Nice to hear from you again. Bandit Man's been a channel follower for many, many years. Met him at, I think I met you, Richard, wasn't it, at the London Bike Show, wasn't it, a couple of years back? Probably about 5 years ago now, something like that. And I think I might have seen you at the NEC as well, and probably other events, I don't know. But anyway, thanks for all your support and thanks for watching the channel. So anyway, Bandit Man says, nice to see something slightly different on the channel. It's a shame tour vids don't generate the interest as bike reviews. It's definitely a favourite of ours, be it watching or making our own. Thank you very much, Richard. Richard's got a channel, by the way, called Bandit Man UK. Go and check it out. He goes on tour with his missus as well. Also a Carol, by the way, I think. Just wonder, now your channel is successful, are you most driven to make vids likely to get big views like new bike releases, or are you more inclined to do more tour vids, which I suspect you may enjoy more? Well, bang on, actually, Richard. Yeah, you're right. I've got to a stage, luckily for me, or fortunately for me, that the channel's reached a stage where I don't have to worry too much about getting new subscribers or viewers, that sort of thing. It's sort of a sustainable level. Manufacturers and stuff take me seriously, so if I need to borrow a bike or something, I usually can do. Very fortunate like that, so that's great. So yeah, what I don't want to do is to have the channel take over my life. If you remember, this started out as a hobby for me, as motorcycling, of course, is for many people. And when I started this, I consciously thought, I don't want this to spoil a hobby. That sort of thing has happened to me in the past. So, yeah, it's got to a point now where you probably noticed I do slightly less bike reviews. Bike reviews are the things that definitely get views compared to, for example, tour videos or other types of videos. Sometimes you don't actually know. Sometimes it can be a review you least expect. So, for example, there was a bike review I put up recently, wasn't there, which was the Maving, the RM1, the little electric bike, which got quite a lot of criticism when I put some stuff up on Instagram about it. Don't forget, follow me on Instagram. I think at Missenden Flyer is me. There is an imposter one out there. Yeah, the video itself, I think last time I checked, it's got knocking on 100,000 views, which for me is pretty good. So you never necessarily know which one's going to do well and which don't, but in the main, bike reviews do well. Other stuff not so well, because of course people are searching on Google, aren't they? If they're looking to buy a new motorcycle, they might, look up the new Yamaha MT whatever review, and up you'll pop with your video. So they're a great way to get views if you're starting out. Little tip there, you can have that one for free. But yeah, to be brutally honest, just doing reviews all the time doesn't interest me. So if I just did reviews, I would quickly get fed up with it and wouldn't want to make videos. So I want to keep the thing interesting. So I try and do as much variety as I can on the channel as possible. Hence the tours. I love, the whole reason I have a motorcycle is because I love travelling and I like touring. So of course I'm going to continue to do bike tours, whether they generate views or not. So if you don't like the tours, I'm sorry. What I have done differently, by the way, about the recent tour to Portugal, as you may have noticed, is instead of just posting them up one after the other, as I did the Alaska and Pacific Northwest tour, I'm interspersing them. So it's every other video. I think on a Saturday is the Portugal tours, and then there are other videos in between, be they bike reviews or other things. So yeah, fairly long answer there, Richard, to your question. But by the way, incidentally, this could be a longish video. Even though I said I'll try and cover like 20 questions, I might ramble on a bit. This is intended to be sort of podcast format, even though it's not actually a podcast. There's not much to see here. It's just my ugly mug. So if you want to do your ironing or something and listen to this, that's probably the way to go. Or if you're doing something else and you can have this on in the background, stick your headphones on, do some exercise, whatever, then this is intended as that sort of thing. It's kind of a chance for us to get to know each other a bit better, a bit of a long-form chat. It's that kind of game. A bit like a live stream, but without the stress. I will do some more live streams, by the way, because I do enjoy them, but they can be a bit stressful, setting up the technology and so on. At least with this game, I know the tech is working because I checked it before I came on, and if I do make a colossal cock up, I can do some editing. Anyway, so there we go. Let's just double check I've answered that one, Richard. Yeah, are you inclined to do more tour vids, which I suspect you may enjoy? So yes, I have got quite a few tours coming up on that front. For that, again, just by way of justification to those of you that don't like the tours so much as other content. When COVID struck, I had quite a number of tours lined up, and of course they all went by the wayside. So now that's no longer a thing. Let's hope it stays that way. Those tour companies and so on have said, "Oh, can we do the tour? Can we do the tour?" So I've got quite a few sort of backed up. I've got a few in the can. I'll say that. In fact, no, I haven't. I've got the Portugal one in the can that's rolling out at the moment, and then I've got a few more that I'm doing this year. So you will see some more, including a mega one. So hopefully you're going to enjoy them. I do listen to your feedback on all the comments, of course. So the sorts of things that you tell me you do and don't like, I'll try and change the tours accordingly. But I've got some crackers coming up this year. I cannot wait to get on them. That's what I enjoy making. So those will be coming. And yes, you're quite right, Richard. That's what that's all about. So that was the first question. Thank you very much indeed for that one. Hopefully I didn't witter on too long about that. Okay, next question from Tony Williamson. Hi Tony, thank you very much for submitting a question. He said, your recent Alaska trip, which I enjoyed by the way, mainly because I did it in 2015, but the other way, LA to Alaska, brought back lots of memories. That's great to hear. My question, did doing it on YouTube pay for your trip? Great question, Tony. Well, you may remember, or not, if you watched the last episode of that Alaska tour, I did go through all the costs on the tour. And the blunt answer to your question is yes, it did. And the reason I know this is because, well, number one, it's a very expensive tour. The actual tour itself was from Motorrad Tours, which is like a BMW, UK BMW affiliated tour company. So it's authorised by BMW, if you like. They're extremely well organised. They come with tour guides. They include really nice hotels, great route guidance, all sorts of stuff they help you out with, which is brilliant. It's a really high quality tour. The best tour company if you want a luxury tour, that's the one to go with, I would say, as far as I'm concerned. But they are quite expensive. That one I did in Alaska, taken in the Pacific Northwest, the way I did it with Mrs. Fly, the two of us on one bike, it's about a £10,000 tour, and then you got to buy your flights on top of that. So in this case, we paid for the flights and food and stuff like that. I think we put in about £5,000 overall. Motorrad Tours and BMW effectively gave us the trip. I'll say for free, but of course there's nothing for free because of course they did expect me to make a series of videos out of it. There was no agreement that we had or arrangement about how many videos or how long or whatever, but I ended up making that series as you saw, and that represented about I was away for a month filming it, and then it was 2 months' work to actually do the editing. And they're long, full days of work, not to mention all the uploads, the comments you answer, and all that sort of thing. So it was actually 3 solid months' work. And I recently worked out, because I did a little bit of feedback a couple of weeks ago to BMW of how that tour's gone in terms of views, who watched it, how long they watched for, that sort of thing. And I worked out that for the 3 months I worked on that, I made about £27 a day. So that was kind of profit, if you like. So yes, it did pay for itself, Tony, and I made £27 a day on top of that. But when you consider I'm doing this full time, this is we'll talk more about that in a minute, but this is effectively my full time, for want of a better word, job now. If you think working for £27 a day is good money, then you're very, very lucky to think like that. I don't think like that. So it's an interesting one. There's a long debate to be had there. Of course, we enjoyed the tour, and of course we try to make them look fun and enjoyable, but they're not always. I have to say there are some downsides to these things. It's not quite like being on holiday when you're filming these things. So to answer your question, Tony, yes, you doing it on YouTube did pay for the trip, in that after expenses, as I made about £27 a day, but you don't get rich doing this, is what I'm saying. But that's not to say I didn't enjoy it and we didn't have a great time overall. Fantastic trip. And we're super glad we did it. I mean, it was one of those once-in-a-lifetime trips. Fantastic. So anyway, thank you, Tony, for your question. Hope that answered it properly. Next up, from Ton Up Triumph. He says, you're clearly a successful man with a passion for flying. Well, that's very kind of you to say so. Depends how you measure success, isn't it? With a passion for flying. My question is, did you ever consider commercial aviation as a career? The honest answer to that one, Ton Up Triumph, is no. If I had my time again, I absolutely would. And I probably would do that as a career, because flying was always my first passion. It still is a big passion for me. Doing this YouTube channel now is taken a bit of time away, allowing me to do my private flying, but I still do it. I am still a current pilot, and come the summer, I will be doing some more flying. I might even do some more flying videos. A few of you have asked for those. That's another example of videos that don't get that many views, but I just love doing them. So I will do some of those. But yeah, the answer is Ton Up Trump. No, I didn't, and I'll explain why I didn't consider it in a minute. But if I had my time again, I definitely would, because I love flying and it'd be a great way to make money. Although, of course, it depends on what sort of commercial aviation you're talking about. Being an airline pilot, long haul, not sure that appeals very much. Something a little bit more interesting in terms of a bit more autonomy, perhaps, for me. Bush pilot, that sort of thing, or helicopter pilot, maybe, I don't know. And I said I was going to say the reason why I didn't consider it is because when I was a lad and going through, doing my A-levels and then going off to university and stuff, I come from very humble beginnings. The thought of actually being a pilot for a living just didn't enter my mind that was something that was even possible to somebody like me. Of course, now with the benefit of hindsight and a bit more world knowledge, of course, I understand that absolutely could have been the case had I wanted to. But so that's why I didn't pursue it. I just did this. I just went down the route that I thought was the way I could realistically make some money and get myself a reasonable living. So anyway, if I had the time again, I would give it a try. But thanks for the question, Ton Up Trump. I've not been asked that one before, so thanks for asking it. Right, next up. From Gray271, well, I really enjoyed this feature. Looking forward to the next session. Oh, good. Glad to hear that, Gray. Thank you. I especially like your classic bike reviews. I've owned quite a few of them. Good. Hope to see another flying session when the weather gets better. Well, hopefully we'll get that done. Need a reliable aeroplane as well, by the way. Keith, if you're watching, sort it, man. Have you thought about sorting some locations around the country where we could get together and have a chat with you and others who follow you, and also say chucking a fiver for a good cause? Just a thought. Hope you both may be able to make it down to North Devon, as we have some very good rides. A bit wet here in New Zealand for the next few days, but gives me time to look at more of your reviews back home in early Feb. So hope it's in the 20s, lol. Gray and Sandy. Well, thank you, Gray and Sandy. Again, regular viewers, regular contributors, regular commenters. Thank you very much for all your support over the last few months and years. Good question. So are we going to do some meetups or anything like that? This comes up from time to time, and I keep saying, particularly to my patrons, we must organise this, and I really must. There's the reason why I haven't done it is because, well, two reasons. One, I just need to get off my backside and do it. Two, there's I don't know how many people might turn up. So there's a risk, isn't there? So if I said, come on down, let's meet up at a pub one Friday night, if 10 people turned up, that would probably be okay. But if 100 turned up, that might be a bit of a problem for the pub. So there's that sort of thing. You've got to kind of judge how many people would go. So then you could say, well, why don't you ask people to tell you if they're going to go, so you get an idea of numbers. You could do that, but obviously the numbers that you have determines the sort of venue you'd have to pick, if you see what I mean. So you'd either need a big pub or a smaller pub, if indeed it's going to be a pub at all. There's that. And then the other thing that slightly worries me is if a lot of people did turn up, and again, I'm not saying they would, but say, for argument's sake, 100 people turned up, are the local police and council going to get annoyed with you because you suddenly dragged 100 bikes through their village? I don't know. So there's those sort of concerns in the back of my mind. So the other thing then that I've been thinking this year, and what might happen, is maybe I can piggyback it with something else. So there's something going on at the moment that I can't talk about, but I will talk to you about it if it happens, whereby another organisation is organising a meetup somewhere not too far from here, and it might be that I can piggyback on the back of that, and we can kind of, in quotes, brand it as a TMF meetup as well. I'll let you know when it's happening, and because they're good at organising these sort of events, they have food and toilets and bands and all that sort of thing. There's more to come along to than just to see me. Maybe that's a way of doing it, and it also then they've got all the right clearances and approvals and legal and insurance and all that sort of thing. So long answer, Gray and Sandy. The answer is yes, I'd love to do that. It'd be fantastic to meet you, and maybe we can do that. Another way I was doing it was perhaps we do it for my patrons first, because obviously there's fewer of those, and obviously there are fewer that are in this country that maybe might come along. So let's say, for argument's sake, there are 200 Patreons, and it's about that figure, in case you've ever wondered. Say 100 of those are in the UK. Let's say 20 of them were available, and 10 of them were in your area, then that might be something that's eminently manageable. And if it's just patrons, I can manage who's coming. I can ask that question. So maybe I'll do it patrons first and then open it up after that. I don't know. So again, long answer. That's the beauty of this format, though. But that's my kind of thinking on that. I would love to do that. I mean, this sort of video is a way of obviously us having some more interaction as well. And don't forget, I go to the ABR festival as well, or have done for the last couple of years. I'm not sure whether I'll go next year or not, but certainly in future years I will, because it's a fantastic event, which is in July. If you fancy going to that, then I can get you a discount on tickets. I can't remember exactly what it is. I think it might be TMF5, but anyway, if you're interested in going to the ABR festival, I'll put the discount code on the screen. Use that at checkout and you can get yourself some money off the tickets. And certainly I'll be hovering around there from the Thursday to the Sunday, 4 days solid. Get to meet all sorts of people. If you want to come along to that, it's a great event, and I'll see you there. All right. Thank you, Graham and Sandy, for that question. Hope you're keeping well, and I hope you're enjoying New Zealand. You said you're in, didn't you? Yeah. Hurry on back. Okie dokie. Right. Hi, Andy. Great video. Oh, this is from Dave Olaz. Sorry if I got your name wrong there, Dave. Hi, Andy. Great video. Love the Q&A content from my favourite bike-related YouTuber. Thank you very much indeed. One for your next Q&A. I'd be interested to hear what you're able to share about how your sponsors work on your videos. Is it as simple as they pay you some cash and you use their logo? Some YouTubers seem to speak about their sponsors during their video, but I don't recall seeing you do that. Just wondering how it works for you. Keep up the good work, mate. Your videos were my main inspiration to get back into riding after 30 years. Dave. Well, thank you, Dave. That's always the best possible comment us YouTubers hear, is when somebody say that we've inspired them to do something, whether it be go on a trip or take up biking in the first place. That's fantastic. So thank you very much indeed. I love that. It gives me a warm feeling inside. Brilliant. So to your question here, how do sponsors work? Good question. I'm more than happy to talk about this. Yeah, you may have noticed at the beginning and end of my videos, I have a banner that comes up with my sponsors on, and they come and go. But there's a few main ones. So at the moment, people like Bike Ahead, Sizap, Superbike Factory, Canary Motorcycle Tours. Who else have I got? The Garage Door people. Apologies if I've missed anybody out in there. But so they crop up at the beginning and end of the videos, and they, of course, they do pay me like a monthly amount in order to get their logos on my videos, and hence get access to you, my audience. So that is how that works. It's just a one-off payment, and it's not a lot of money either, I have to say. Less than you think. Certainly way less than an advert in MCN or something would cost. So that works for me, because what I like about that, and I don't talk about them much in my videos, occasionally I do. So for example, I did do a piece on Sizap when they first joined. I talked about the Sizap security tracking device, which I think is a great little tool, by the way. I showed you me using it. It wasn't a review as such, but it was just a sort of an introduction to that, so you knew what that was all about. So sometimes I do that, and I do mention it, but generally speaking, Dave, I try and make a point of not going on about my sponsors. Because to me, it quickly becomes old, doesn't it? I hate it when you see videos where, and lots of YouTubers do this, it's a perfectly legit way to make money, and never say never, maybe I'll do it one day, but at the moment I'm minded to never do this, is run along with your video and then in the middle say, oh, by the way, this sponsor's videoed by this milkshake drink, or whatever it is, and then talk about it as if it's something you use all the time, and clearly you don't, or indeed if it's motorcycle related. I hate that sort of product placement thing. I hate having things thrown down your neck in a commercial way. So if ever sponsors come to me, and they do from time to time come to me and ask me to do things for them, I generally say no thanks. And if they don't like it, then they kind of stop being sponsors. So I'm really grateful to my current sponsors, because they're all kind of hands off. So Image 4 Security is the other sponsor of the Garage Door people, for example. Now, if you watch my videos, you'll see from time to time I open the garage door barrier on the garage, and I take my bikes in and out, and people often ask me, what is that garage door barrier? And then I'll tell them. But I think that's a more useful way of getting the message out there about the guardsman, which is what it's called. Let's do an advert for it now. Than actually making a video or doing something in the middle of the video saying, oh, this is the guardsman, how good is this, sort of thing. I just don't like it being rammed down your throat. I don't like it when it happens to me. I don't think you're going to like it if I do it to you. So I like you to know who my sponsors are, of course, so they do get mentioned from time to time. And of course, in some cases, when they're tour companies like Canary Motorcycle Tours, I love going there and touring. So of course they're going to be mentioned. But yeah, I don't have any deals with them where I have to make a certain amount of videos or anything like that. I wouldn't enter into that sort of deal in the first place. It is purely you can have your logos on the start and finish, and that way people will get, if they see them, they'll be intrigued. There are links below my videos with links to those companies if you want more information about them, and that's how that works. And that's the reason, by the way, this reminds me of something. That is the reason why at the start of all my videos that little banner pops up in the top corner and says includes paid promotion. That is entirely because YouTube's rules say if you make any sort of money out of your videos, and of course with advertising, which is called Google AdSense, and with any sponsors you've got, then you do make money. So I have to put that there to say that yes, I am making money out of this, to be completely transparent about it. That is not because I'm promoting something within the video. So somebody said, there was a comment the other day that somebody left, they were watching the Portugal tour, so I'm so fed up with you, keep pushing BMW GS. How much are BMW paying you to keep saying the GS is the greatest bike in the world, or words to that effect? And I responded that I can assure them BMW didn't pay me anything to say that the GS is a great bike. No manufacturer has ever paid me to say anything about any bike. In fact, I don't think no manufacturer's ever paid me anything to say anything about their product. It's only ever been those logos on the start and end of the video. So that's why I'm saying includes paid promotion at the start of the videos. It's because I've got those sponsor banners at the start and end. It's not because I'm wearing a particular shirt or something. I've got a Honda hoodie on at the moment, for example, but Honda haven't paid me to be wearing this. I just happen to like the hoodie. Okay, so that's what that's about. So hopefully that works for you. Let me know what you think. Let me know, do you not mind those in-video adverts? If you all say to me, actually, we don't mind if you want to, prop up in the middle and say, oh, I use this razor blade, because I get all sorts of people come. I get there's some common ones that you have seen. So the VPN people, they've approached me. Actually, I've had a razor blade one approach me. All sorts of stuff, all sorts of companies, mostly games, computer games. Would you believe, come to me and want me to put 30-second video adverts in the middle of their videos? It just turns me really off. Anyway, I've gone on about that, Dave, but anyway, hope that answers your question. And thanks for the question. Right, next, James McGee. Hi, Andy. I have a question for you. When you just fancy a ride out, not for YouTube, how do you choose which of your bikes you're going to go out on? Do you just have days where certain bikes fit your mood, or do you rotate them round, or is it just a case of whatever set of keys are at hand at the time? Great question, James. I don't think I've ever been asked that. I like that. It's a really good question. And I'm not sure I know what the answer is. It's probably a mix of all those. It's really what mood you're in. It depends on the weather and what you're doing, where you're going. If I'm just going out for a ride, just to enjoy a motorcycle, what I tend to do is go out on my Speed Twin or my Royal Enfield Interceptor. They're the bikes I just like riding around for 3/4 of an hour, around the lanes, get the wind through my hair, metaphorically speaking, of course, just enjoy riding, enjoy the sound and the just being on a motorbike. Then they're the ones I tend to choose. Sometimes I get a hankling to think, I haven't been on the GS for a while, let's ride that, or the Goldwing as well is a pleasure to ride. Sometimes I just take that out, or similarly, even rarely, the Panigale, which I absolutely love. So yeah, it's basically the mood I'm in. It does also sometimes, it is not so much what keys are at hand, but which bike is closest to the end of the garage. Now I tend to have my Speed Twin or my Interceptor closest to the garage door, because they're the ones that I know I like to ride, given the choice. So that's kind of how I do it. It's just on the mood. And also I do rotate them a bit as well, because I think it's important that all your bikes do get used. So again, quite difficult in the winter, but in the summer, when I'm riding absolutely every day, sometimes multiple times a day, then I do make a point of thinking, which one haven't I ridden recently? And I'll go out and I'll ride that just to keep the fluids running through them. I do that as well in the winter, but obviously less frequently. But they all get run up at least once a month. They get a ride out, a proper warm up. But yeah, I guess it's down to mood really, James. But great question. So thank you for that. All right, Jeremy Cool next. Thank you for your question, Jeremy. He asks, how did Mrs. Fly get interested in biking? Did you influence her? Or was she interested on her own accord? Does Mrs. Fly ride? If so, what does she ride? So, good question. How did Mrs. Fly get interested? Well, she was always very anti-biking, to be honest with you, which may surprise you. I always wanted a motorcycle. When I first met her, I was about 23. I'm now 54, so a few years ago now, and she said it was a bike or her, so I chose her. Anyway, long story forward, I got to about 40 and said, look, I'm an adult now, I'm definitely having one. If you don't like it, op it. And I got a bike and she's still here, so that's all fine. And then over the years, of course, the YouTube thing's kicked off. She's seen how much fun I've had on the bike, the tours I've been doing, and she thought, I'd like a bit of that. So then she decided that she was going to try going on the back of the bike, which she did, and she enjoyed some tours. You may have seen some of those on the videos on the channel. So that was great. She's also, of course, over time got to meet some other people that ride, other women that ride, and it started to get in her mind that maybe she'd like to learn to ride. So about 18 months, 2 years ago, we bought her a Suzuki GSXS215, obviously a little 125cc learner bike, which she has L plates on, and she rides that at the moment. Again, it's cold at the moment and horrible weather. But once the weather improves, she'll be back out on that. We go on ride outs together as often as we can, just to little cafes locally. We'd rarely go more than 20 miles away. And at some point, she might decide she wants to go and get her license. At the moment, no huge rush. You said, did I influence her? Well, absolutely not. I think motorcycling is one of those things, because it is, there is a danger and a risk element associated with it. I'd hate to have, kind of felt that I'd forced her into it, and then it turned out that, she'd had an accident or something. So very much, no, there's no pressure from me to do it. If she wants to do it, that's fine. And yeah, maybe she'll do a test at some point. Lots of people have asked me for an update on her riding. There are some videos of her riding on the channel, by the way. Jeremy, if you've not been subscribed for too long, have a look through the back catalogue. You can find those, including when she did her CBT originally. She's since had to do it again because it ran out after 2 years. But anyway, we'll get her on at some point. We'll do a little ride out together, and we'll do a little bit of a video about how she's getting on riding the bike, and we'll show you the bike more as well, because a few people have asked how we're getting on with the little 125, which is a brilliant little bike. So thank you, Jeremy, for that question. Next, Rab Fergie. Like the new podcast format. Excellent, Rab. Have you considered a track day video? Not sure if you have the gear for it. A lot of late to and born again bikers find it really helpful with riding skills and road riding. Yeah, I'm absolutely for track riding. In fact, any different types of riding, I'm a big fan of giving a go to. So off-road, track, etc. And in fact, I have done a few track days in my time, including I've got videos on the channel, Rab, if you want to go and have a look at those as well. So yes, I have considered track day videos. They're on the channel. If you just search, I don't know, I did one on my Panigale at Silverstone, for example. It was a few years ago now. Might have done one called First Time on a Track, something like that. Search on my channel, you'll find them. But I do recommend anyone have a go on them. If you're interested in riding on a track or not, just because it hones your skills, it makes you realise what your bike can do, and it makes you realise that actually the place to go fast is on the track, not on the road, because it makes you realise how much road you need to go around a corner fast. I do enjoy it. It's one of those things that's not... it didn't grab me as something I've got to do every weekend like some people do. Some people absolutely love going to track days, don't they? I do have the gear for it in that I've got leathers, so don't doubt that. But yeah, I think everybody should have a go on a track if they're at all interested. I'll probably do more track days in my time, but no immediate plans to do so. It's not something that hugely floats my boat, but it is fun once in a while. So thank you, Rab, for that question. Okay, next. This is from Barry Marling, and he's been a subscriber for 8 years, would you believe? I looked that up. So thank you, Barry, for being around for so long. You must be one of the old school. Where are we now? 2023. So that's... I think I've been doing this seriously now since... When did I start? 2017, I think I started doing this more seriously. So yeah, you've been around since the really early days, haven't you? So thank you, Barry. That's fantastic. How things have changed, eh? Anyway... For your next question and answers, on your overseas tours, how do you ship your bike gear, helmets, boots, bike protective gear, etc.? Good question, Barry. And one, again, the reason why I'm mentioning this is that a few people ask this as well. So easy. I stick my jackets and stuff, if I'm not wearing it, depends on the tour and how long the flight is and all that sort of thing. But if it's a long flight, jackets and stuff in the bag, in the hold, and then my helmets and my cameras go in hand baggage. It's a bit of a faff, bit of a pain, but helmets and cameras are sensitive, delicate things, aren't they? I don't particularly want them thrown around in the baggage handling, so that's how I do it. I have checked in helmets in the past, but then somebody mentioned it to me and I hadn't really thought it through, and so yeah, now I always take them as hand baggage, so that's what I do. Be interested to know what you do if you go touring. And then he goes on to say, as regarding E10 and E5 fuels, personally I found I'm getting more miles per gallon by using super unleaded E5 on my Bandit 1250. My reserve light was coming on earlier on E10, now getting around 200 miles on a tank. So that's and PS, really enjoy the tours. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Barry. That's good to hear that you've actually noticed an increase in fuel economy. This comes from on the last your questions and answers. We talked about using E5 versus E10, and I said that I'm using E5 all the time now, which is super unleaded, isn't it? It's got 5% ethanol instead of 10 in it, because actually overall I think it works out better value, even though it's more expensive at the pumps, and Barry's backing that up. So thank you, Barry. Right, moving on. Doc Green, another old-timer. Hi, Doc. How you doing? I don't know why I call you Doc. Your name's Alan, of course. Anyway, he says, hi, Andy. Great idea, the Q&A, and I hope it goes well for you. Well, the first one went all right. I think when I last looked, it had knocking on 30,000 views, which is not a bad number. And it's just one of those things where we get a chance to talk. I know we met, didn't we? I think we met at the London Bike Show as well, didn't we? And possibly the NEC too. We've met at least a couple of times, maybe ABR, I can't remember. But yeah, it's just a way for us to have a chat again, isn't it, without physically having to meet. So anyway, a question for the future Q&A. Of all the bikes you've seen and ridden, which is the one you wish to add to your personal collection? Okie dokie, interesting. But you say that for the sake of comparison, yours is Ducati V4 Street Fighter. I still haven't got it yet, and I yearn. Keep up the great work. Yours, Alan. Thank you, Alan. Good question. Again, one that comes up from time to time. Which is one I'd like to add to my... there's been a few. At the end of the day, I say this again and again, but all modern bikes are pretty flipping good. And actually, as I ride some older ones as well for my classic reviews, they're pretty good as well. And I tend to fall in love with probably about 30% of the bikes I ride. I think, actually, I'd like one of these. But, money and space prevents me having them all. But there's plenty I would like to get through. But ones that I'm actually actively considering for myself... at the moment, I mean, I love all the bikes I've got. I don't want to get rid of any of the bikes I've got. But ones, if I had space, that I'd really love to add. I do love the Kawasaki Z900 RS. One of those is towards the top of the list for sure. I love the Ducati Street Fighter V4. I also love, and this is a bit of a problem, might be a surprise to you, the KTM Super Duke R, now the Evo version. That one appeals greatly, as does the Aprilia RS V4 factory. So that's a bit of a problem. I like all those. And then the other one that might, again, maybe or may not be a surprise to you is the Triumph. Oh, what the heck's it called now? My memory's really going as I'm getting older. The Speedmaster. That's the one, the Speedmaster. I absolutely love that bike. Whenever I've ridden it, I've borrowed one now from Triumph, the sort of current one and one from about 5 years ago for a couple of weeks at a time. And each time I thought, I'd really like one of these in my collection. I've even thought about, do I want to get rid of the Speed Twin and replace it with the Speedmaster? So that's quite a serious contender as well. It's just something different. I like that laid back sort of relaxed vibe that you get on it, and the fact that it's a Triumph and it sounds great and it goes well. So yeah, I suppose the ones vying for my attention at the moment, Z900 RS, Speedmaster, and V4. From Ducati, the Street Fighter. Quite different bikes, aren't they? Probably others out there as well, actually, if I put my mind to it. But they're the ones that immediately leap to mind. Thank you for the question, Alan. All right, moving on. Christopher Horton. Hi, Andy. That was really informative. That was the last Q&A, thank you. I enjoy your videos and enjoyed your recent tour too. Just one question on YouTubing. Referring to your comments, making these videos looks like a full-time job. Do you still work too? I'm an IT project manager, so know how busy you would be if you did. Well, yes and no is the answer to that. I mean, I do... It does look like a full-time job because I spend more time doing this than I ever did spending when I was an IT project manager like you. I did as little as that as I could possibly do, and I still worked long hours then, so I know how it works. I just didn't enjoy it. There was no fun in it. It was just a means to an end. It was a means to get money. So I do more hours doing this. We'll talk more about that later, I think. But this isn't the only thing I do. I'm a believer in not having all your eggs in one basket. I also own another small business that I run with my wife. I won't go into details on it. It's nothing to do with motorcycling. It's not very interesting. But the good news with it is it doesn't take that much of my time to manage, probably a few days a month, and Mrs. Flyer does the lion's share of the work on that business. So I do that as well as the YouTubing. So that's how if YouTubing all goes pear-shaped at some point, then I think it's important that you've got another string to your bow. So there's that too. So yeah, I kind of regard YouTubing as what I do full time. I don't regard it as a full-time job, as I said earlier. I try and keep regarding it as a hobby because I love doing it, and that's why I put in so many hours. If you like doing something, you don't mind putting in the hours, and it doesn't feel like work, does it? So that's the trick with that, I think, Chris. Anyway, thank you for the question. Next one from Colin Vincent, another name I recognise. It seems I'm at odds with many of your viewers based on views, as I like the tours the most. Excellent. Good man, Colin. Thank you. I have a double question for next time. One, I'm in the market for a new helmet, and noise level, lack of, is my number one priority. What would you recommend out of those you have tested? That's easy, actually. the current helmet that I use the most is the quietest I think I've ever used, and that's the one, in fact, you can see behind me. The one at the bottom, the one at the top is Mrs. Flyer's Schubert. Hers is a C3. Mine's a flip front C5 at the bottom there. And I've just found that to be the best vlogging helmet ever, because of the way the flip front comes around. It fits quite tight around your neck. You don't get a lot of wind noise coming in from under it. So for me as a YouTuber, you might have noticed if you watch my videos, my bike reviews, where I'm wearing that helmet, and I tend to wear that most of the time for them for this reason, the sound quality is pretty good that come out of it, and that's because there's very little background noise other than the stuff you want to hear, the bike engine. So I would wholeheartedly recommend that if quietness is your main thing. Also, it's a very flexible, it's a good general purpose helmet. I think it looks good. They're quite expensive. I mean, they're not perfect. I have some issues with my visor, for example, that flops down at 50 miles an hour, although I understand there is a fix from Schubert for that now. So if I find out about that and get it done, I'll let you know in case you've got one. Anyone that's got a Schubert C5, I understand. It might even be a free fix. There's a little washer or something you can install that stops that. So that was a bit of a nuisance. Other than that, great helmet. So thank you, Colin. Oh, there was another part of this, wasn't there? The other question was, have you ever considered opening a chip shop and calling it the Missenden Fryer? Funny enough, no, I haven't, Colin. But it would be a great name if I had. There are a number of chip shops within shouting distance of here. I don't think we need another one. In fact, I'm surprised they haven't called it the Missenden Fryer, any of them. But great, great questions, and thanks for giving me a laugh, Colin. Cheers. Next up, from Macon. Enjoyed the Q&A. I often wonder if the pressure and off-camera hours to create content takes some of the fun out of just going for a ride. How do you balance the hobby with the business side? This is a great question. Touches on some of the things we talked about before, doesn't it, Macon? Often wonder if the pressure and off-camera hours take some of the fun. Well, brutal answer is yes, it does take some of the fun out of it. And that's something you obviously have to guard against, because again, as I said earlier, I don't want my hobby to be destroyed by doing YouTube. And I do enjoy YouTube as well, which started off purely as a hobby because I like photography and I like tinkering about with technology and stuff. So for me, it's three things I love doing. But if you're doing it all the time, if you feel pressure because, I don't know, you've got to earn money, or you feel you've got to bang a video out, whatever, then you do start to get some pressure. And I have got like that in the past. And luckily I recognised it and eased off. So this is why I now, for example, make 2 videos a week. I was going to think about going down to 1 actually, but I think 2 is a good number for me. I do them on Wednesdays and Saturdays, if you hadn't worked that out. I used to do them, I think, Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, and I got some massive channel growth when I initially did that. And that is the way to grow your channel, is to get as many videos out there as you can. But it is really hard work to consistently do 3 videos a week, because of course, if you want to do anything else with your life, you've got to fit it around it. So, for example, say you want to be outrageous and have a week off and go away with your family on holiday in the summer. Well, that means the week before, you've got to make 6 videos so that you've got 3 videos to go out while you're away. It doesn't necessarily work quite like that, but you need to make them in advance. You get the idea. So even at 2 videos a week, if you want to do other things with your life, like go flying, have the odd holiday or whatever, then you've got to make more than 2 videos a week, so you've got them in the can ready for when you go away. And that is actually the main reason why I record my videos so in advance. I get comments on like the bike reviews, people saying, well, your winter's very odd, I can still see leaves on the trees. That's because I might have videoed some bike reviews months ago, and that's also why I don't necessarily get bike reviews out as early as other people. I don't, again, because I'm not so worried anymore about getting views or subscribers. I don't need massive numbers, I just need enough. I don't tend to try and get the videos out there first, which is when you get the big views, because it just puts pressure on. You never know when a new bike's going to be released. You might get a press release that says a bike's being released the day after, and you suddenly have to make a video then. You might have had plans. That's not how I want to run my life. I want to do stuff with my family and friends and other things besides, to keep it fresh. So I can't remember where I was going with this now. So yeah, so that's how I get around it, is not making so many videos that the pressure is unbearable, and it kind of was with 3 a week. So I understand when you look at people like Norrell Itchy Boots and Rob, Moto Bob, they're knocking out videos, at least 3 a week. I understand the work that those guys are putting in, and that's why they've got big numbers, or a lot of the reason. They're very, very good videos as well, there's that, I must add. But that's why they get the sort of growth they do. But I just found, for me personally, I couldn't sustain that. I did that for about 2 years solid without any breaks, and that was enough for me, and I had to turn down to 2. And I think I can manage 2 for the foreseeable future if you want to continue to watch them. Occasionally I think I'll put another, if I've got a slack week and I've got something in my mind and I want to do another video, I might bang a third one out. But my basic plan is 2 a week, possibly going down to 1 depending on what else happens. But yeah, it's all about balance, as you intimate, Macon. You don't want to make the hobby become a chore, do you? Because then you've lost your hobby. So yeah, I just try and keep a constant watch on the balance, record stuff in advance so I know I've got stuff in the can, so that if something unexpected crops up or I need to change my personal plans, it can be done without impacting my schedule of publishing videos into the future. Thank you for your question. How are we doing for time? Gosh, I think we've already been on for over half an hour. I haven't got anywhere near all my questions yet. I've got some great questions this week. Let's do a few more, see how we go. I will keep them for next time as well, so do not despair. If you've not had your question answered, I will come to it at some point in a future one of these. Maybe I'll need to do more of these to get through the questions. All right, next one from the Real Rebel Canuck. You remember we had a question from him before. This is a follow-up. Perfect. This worked very well. Thank you. The lighting, the setup, yes, it will work well for a live stream, but the space may appear congested with a few more drinking buddies in the same shot in the same room. Well, we've done it before, and I just use a different lens. I've got a wide-angle lens, and suddenly my little study here looks vast, and we could easily fit 4 of us in here if need be. So we will do a live stream at some point in the future. Excellent questions submitted by those that you shared. I learned a few things. Good stuff. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Canuck is a nickname. Do you remember I asked what Canuck meant? Because his name being the Real Rebel Canuck. It's a nickname for Canadians. Johnny Canuck referred to a Canadian soldier in World War I and World War II. Generally speaking, the nickname is warmly received. However, I've heard, not confirmed, that some US citizens have referred to French Canadians as such with derogatory intent. Referring to French people with derogatory intent, whatever next. This unsurprisingly was not well received, rightly so, as it shouldn't be. To answer your other question, Rebel Canuck is a guy. So thank you for that. Thank you. Question for next time. You have mentioned and shared screen time with other motorcycle YouTubers. Who have you befriended as a direct result of your or their channel? That's a brilliant question. Again, one I've never been asked before. So let's have a swig. I'm getting a bit dry here. Yeah, that is a brilliant question and one that I've never been asked before. So thank you for that. So, of course, there are people you may know. So Lamb Chops, John, Bruce, Teapot One, Richie Vida. Those were the early ones, I suppose, that I kind of befriended. They were quite easy to befriend because, I physically met them. They're not that far away from me. They're at least in this country. And those were guys that I used to watch myself. So it's fantastic that they have now become good pals of mine. We don't see each other that often, but we're in pretty regular touch. We have a little WhatsApp group and we comment on each other's videos and stuff. And it's a really nice little community of YouTubers that we have. So those are the first ones. They're the ones that came to mind. Other people, of course, are, well, I regard Norley, Itchy Boots, as a pal of mine, a YouTube pal. We've never actually met each other in the flesh, but we have spoken a few times. And again, we're in touch via WhatsApp and stuff. It's great to have Norley as somebody to talk to as well, and I think she finds it quite useful. It can be quite a solitary pastime being a YouTuber, and in her case, doing the sorts of videos she is, of course it can. So another great one. Dave from Really Good TV. If you've not watched Really Good TV, he's become a good pal based over in Ireland. Love watching his videos. He's a BBC cameraman, so amazing quality videos. Likes the same sort of bikes as I do. He was over here doing some filming a couple of years ago for the Beeb, I think it was. He films for Come Dine With Me, that terrible TV programme. Don't blame him. Anyway, he was over filming some of that. He popped along and got to meet him. I've never ridden in Ireland yet, so hopefully there's something there in the future for us as well. So Dave, of course, Andy Mancam, enjoy watching his videos. Met him when we did the Bikes v Plane thing. Again, he's in Germany, so not so easy, but again, in my mind at least, he may disagree, but I regard him as a YouTube pal. Tony from Views from the Man Cave, Alan Milliard, of course. Again, just people that I would never have met if I hadn't done the YouTube thing. And these are people that we kind of in touch, and it's all good. It's all good. There may be others. Ryan from Fort Nine, even I met him at ABR. We'll be meeting him again this year. Do come along to ABR. You get to meet Ryan as well as me. Rob from Motor Bob. There are others as well. Others. I'm trying to think who else. Who have I missed? Anyway, there will be others. They'll come to me in a minute and I'll be annoyed that I didn't mention them, so apologies if I didn't mention you and you're a pal of mine. But yeah, so quite a few of them. All the ones that you'd expect, I guess. Okay, thanks for that. Next one, Darren. Nice video, Andy, and something a bit different. Having done 2 tours with Motorrad now, the Norway one and the USA trip, how do they compare in terms of value for money, sights to see, roads, etc.? And which would you recommend if you could only do one? Crikey, that's a question. The Norway vids did very well for me, the Arctic Circle trip. In terms of value for money, they're very similar because they're both, let's face it, high-end and expensive tours. But the Norway one, of course, I did on my own bike. I rode from here to the Arctic Circle on a ferry. So that one, you could probably argue maybe better value for money because it's not as expensive because you're taking your own bike. So they're slightly different, aren't they? Which one was better than the other? Which would you recommend if you could only do one? That is a tough question, I have to say, because they're both quite different. And of course, Mrs. Fly came with me on the Alaska trip, which added a whole new dimension to that, which I really enjoyed because I felt she missed out on the Norway one, which was a cracking thing too. Norway was a shorter trip. With some absolutely lots of stunning scenery. There's lots of stunning scenery in Alaska and the Pacific Northwest and Canada and all that. But it was maybe it was a bit more samey, a bit more fewer and far between. So perhaps if I had to say, maybe I would nudge towards the Norway, but it's a very marginal thing, I have to say. Both brilliant tours, and in fact, all of Motorrad tours. I'm not saying they don't sponsor me. I'm not saying this for any other reason than I actually believe it. If you look at the sorts of places they go to, they do tours in Patagonia, South Africa. I mean, they're amazing places that they go to. So yeah, great places to go to. If you can afford it, then I would thoroughly recommend those tours. They're so well organised, as I mentioned before, great fun as well. And they're all kind of once in a lifetime things, aren't they? And if you want to take the stress out of it, do it with them, and then you've got no hassle. Anyway, thank you, Darren, for that. Next up, let's just do a few more, maybe another 4 or 5 questions, see how we're doing on time. This is from Nick the Quick. Hi, Andy. Since you're usually not particularly judgmental about bikes, I'm curious as to how you know in advance you aren't going to like a bike and why you might turn down a test based on that. Is it the looks, the size, the brand, the engine, config, or just a mix of the above? Cheers. P.S. This format is a great way of connecting with your followers and hangers-on. I don't have any hangers-on. Perhaps you could let the viewers see the actual usernames you have trouble pronouncing. Yeah, good idea, actually, Nick. And good question. Yeah, so this comes from, I think last time I must have said on the Your Questions Answered, I don't, I get offered bikes to review and I turn some down because I don't particularly fancy them. Because only, again, going back to that, doing YouTube that you enjoy, I tend to only review bikes that I think I'm going to like. Why would you ride something you don't like? Again, unless you're in the unfortunate position of having to review every bike that comes out, and that means you're going to have to do a few that you think are howlers. So yeah, how do I choose them? Well, it's just down to the things that you said, Nick. So for example, there are a lot of middleweight parallel twin bikes out at the moment. They don't excite me that much. So, with the exception of the Honda Hornet, which I do like the look of, I'm not too interested in going through all those. Lots of the cruisers I'm not too interested in. I don't do those, although there are some that I do and some that I do like the look of. So yeah, it's just down to what I'm into at the time, really. I don't do lots of sports bikes. I do love sports bikes, but I find them uncomfortable and impractical. And also, actually, those videos, because I'm not a sports bike rider or a very skilled rider, don't do so well on the channel, even though I've got, I own a Panigale. I do love the S1000RR, of course, and others as well. So yeah, it's down to kind of mood. I mean, if a bike just looks ugly, or it's a bike that I definitely wouldn't ride myself or wouldn't even ever consider buying, then I'll turn it down. So yeah, that's how that works. There's no particular science to it. It's whatever the mood takes me at the time. I'm very fortunate to be in that position, I know. Thanks for the question, Nick. Next, Willie Y. For the Q&A, Andy, have you ever thought of riding original 50s and 60s bikes like Gold Stars, Bonnevilles, etc., to compare to the modern retro versions? If you're worried about learning the old-fashioned controls, the Vintage Motorcycle Club have training days, and it could introduce you to another completely different aspect of motorcycling. Not having ever ridden an old bike is like never having ridden off-road or on track. Fair point. You don't have to be good at it to enjoy it, and it broadens your motorcycling perceptions. Cheers, Will. Yeah, very good point, Will. And I'd love to ride some proper old vintage motorcycles. And in fairness, I have been approached in the last year by a number of motorcycling museums that have said, come on down. In some cases, I'm not sure whether that means I can get to ride some bikes as well. I'd love to. I'd certainly love a go, and I'm sure it does make you a better rider. The reason why I haven't done many on the channel is because it's quite hard to physically borrow those bikes, because you have to borrow bikes from actual people, and there are some insurance and all sorts. It's fraught with all sorts of issues if you borrow people's bikes, as I've found out in the past, for reasons I won't go into. So it's quite difficult to get hold of those proper vintage bikes unless I can do it through some sort of organisation, and those museums may be the way to do that. I would like to do it. I don't own any myself because, you didn't ask this question, but you might be interested. The reason why I don't have an old bike myself, you might think in my collection I might have one, is because I get everything that I like out of old bikes from modern retros. Buy a Triumph Bonneville, a modern one, and you get something that looks like an old Bonneville to all intents and purposes to the untrained eye, but you get all the modern convenience of heated grips, reliability, and so on. So for me, there's not unless you're, if you love engineering, which I do love engineering, but I'm not an engineer. I'm no good at fixing stuff myself. If I had an old bike, it would be leaking oil, breaking down all the time by the roadside. I'd have to fix it. It's not really something I want to get into. I want something that I can turn the key, press the starter, and you're off. So for me, give me a modern day Royal Enfield or a modern day Triumph, and I'll get the old retro vibe out of that, rather than actually having the old original bikes themselves. Not to say I would not to ride one though, for the reasons I said before, and I'm sure it does make you a better rider as well. Alrighty, thanks for that question, Willie Y. Next one, a few more. My computer's making funny noises. I hope it's not about to crash on me. Jerry Powell, he says, good idea having this. One question, how do you deal with the negative comments? That's a great question, Jerry, and there's a variety of ways. Number one, I would say I don't get that many negative comments, but if you put yourself out there in social media, on YouTube, you're going to get some. You can't please everybody all the time. Some people are going to hate you. I understand that. Loads of people hate the fact that I say, hey kids, at the start of my video. Lots of people hate the fact I'm a bit of a baldy. Lots of people hate the fact that I ride the bikes I ride, all sorts of stuff that people don't like. And they do tell me about it. I can assure you they do. So there's lots of ways I deal with them. So if it's something that's absolutely outrageous, like just being outrageously rude, death threats, that sort of thing, and I have had a few of those, then simple, you just ban them from the channel, and that's the end of them. They don't come back again because they can't. So that's easy. So if it's all bad, they go. If it's somebody just being rude or making some silly comments that they think is clever, then sometimes these days I take them on and I have a bit of fun with them, and I try and out-logic them or try and understand why they've said the thing that they've said. Often they come back and apologise when you do that, which is quite interesting. And then if they get worse and worse and they don't come round, then again I just ban them. So it's my channel, I can do what I like. So I've got ultimate power there. That's fantastic. If it's somebody just being a little bit rude or just has a different opinion, then I'll just leave it. And sometimes my viewers pitch in on my behalf and will argue with that person instead of me, which is always lovely and always great to watch. So yeah, I handle it in different ways. If it's too bad, I'll just ban them, is basically it. I mean, I know some channels just ban any bad vibe, off you go. And it's within your rights to do so. I've started doing that thing now, again, and I've had complaints about this. I have a little flash screen that comes up at the beginning of my videos, which are my small print, and in it there's about 7 or 8 points of things in there that I like to point haters at. So again, because I put it on such a very short period of time, it's difficult for them to pause it and read them. That's what amuses me about that. So that's there as well, so I can point people back at that when they say, oh, why do you say hey kids? I can point them back there. So yeah, check out my small print if you've not seen it. It amuses me, and I add things all the time to it as well. I think we're on version 5 at the moment. But yeah, that's how I deal with them. I try not to let them get to me. Sometimes they do. Some people can be extremely nasty out there, and then these things, and they keep you awake at night, some of them. But that's just the down. Most of doing this YouTube thing is so good. It's such a great thing to do. It's a small price to pay, but yeah, unfortunately they are out there. But you've always got the ultimate, move, ban them, haven't you? Thanks for that. All right, next up, Wood J99, or it might just be Wood J. Hi Andy, I've enjoyed watching your channel for a long time now and love the varied content. You are very clearly putting a great deal of thought and effort to continue to improve content. Thank you. I like to think I'll try to. So a big thank you. I have 2 questions. When going about your daily life, do you get recognised and approached by viewers who must feel like they know you? My other question is, do you get much time on the bikes when you purposely do not take the cameras, etc., and enjoy not thinking about creating a video with all the work that goes with it? Great channel. Well, thank you, Wood J, for those great questions, actually. So the first one, do I get recognised when I'm out and about? Simple short answer is yes, but very rarely. It does happen, usually when you're least expecting it. It's because it's out of context. It's always quite funny. So I've been, me and Mrs. Fly were once hiking around Cornwall, and we walked across the beach. We were all in our hiking kit, rucksacks and all that, and somebody legged it across the beach, going, Andy, hello. So that was great. That was really fun. Again, out of context for both of us. That was a bit of a laugh. I was once in a local curry house with my kids and Mrs. Fly, and one of my daughters said, oh, that man over there keeps looking at me. In fact, it was one of the people that worked at the curry house, one of the serving people, and it was hilarious. So she thought they were eyeing her up, and it turns out another of the waiters came over eventually. So I'm sorry about this, but do you mind, that fella there is a big fan of yours. He watches your channel. Do you mind just having a selfie with him? So that was hilarious. It wasn't for my daughter after all; it was for me. So that was funny. I've had people stop me at traffic lights. If I'm on the bike, then it happens more often because, of course, then you're in context and you kind of appreciate that. Or if indeed you go to anything remotely bikey. So if I go to a bike dealership, I get recognised all the time then. In fact, if I go to a busy bike dealership and somebody doesn't come and say hello, I wonder what's going on. But then the other thing I often consider is, how many people recognise you, going back to the previous question, and they're one of those people that doesn't like you particularly, or doesn't like your channel. And I appreciate I can't appeal to everybody all the time. I completely get that. You don't have to like me. That's fine. So I wonder how many of those people see you and think, oh, that's that idiot off of YouTube I can't stand, and just walk on. So I'm sure there's a few of those. That's in the back of my mind when I'm around dealerships and stuff, or indeed at bike shows, of course. It's in the main, it's lovely. People come up, say hello. It's brilliant. But yeah, short answer to that question, Wood J, is yeah, I do get recognised from time to time. And it's always a nice thing. It always catches you by surprise. It's even better if you're with a pal of yours or something, because it's always very impressive, isn't it, when people think you're famous? God, how lame is that? But there you go, it's true. What was the other question? Do you get much time on your bikes? We purposely do not take the cameras. Not a lot of time, to be honest, but it does happen. So, for example, this year, or actually last year now, of course, 2022, well, I did... Oh, that'll be... Whoa, don't... Oh, let's stop. Let me just get rid of that. Apologies, hope there wasn't anything important. Yeah, so last year I did do a little bike tour in Wales for a few days with a few pals. I didn't take any cameras. We just had great fun, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. That was in the autumn. It was slightly annoying, actually, because it turned out the autumn leaves were absolutely stunning, and we did some amazing rides, and I kind of wish I had taken the cameras now, because it would have been a brilliant, brilliant video, and would have been made a change to do a bit more of a local tour. I get lots of complaints from people saying I'm always doing these exotic tours, do some more local ones like you used to do, which I will do, by the way. I completely get that. So yeah, that was good. So I thoroughly enjoyed that without the cameras. That was brilliant. But otherwise, I don't get a lot of chance to do it. If I'm going out with Mrs. Flower, I don't tend to take the cameras, so I enjoy those rides. Once in a while, I mean, sometimes, again, in the summer, if I haven't been out on the bike, if I'm just editing it, I'll go out over lunchtime just for a spin. I've got some local routes, so there's like a half an hour, one an hour and a half one that I do, where I'll just go out for a ride for the hell of it. Just clears your head, it's good for the soul, that sort of thing. So yeah, I do make a point of going out without the cameras, but it doesn't happen as often as you'd like, or as I'd like, and certainly things like going bike touring and stuff, that has become a bit of a casualty for me. I used to go out on my own and do tours on my own without the cameras and thoroughly enjoyed it. That doesn't tend to happen now. If you're putting the effort in to go on tour, I might as well film it. But yeah, great question. So thank you, Wood J, for those two. Right, next up, Bradley Alexander, another name I recognise. Hi, Brad. The question that absolutely intrigues me, exactly how many motorbikes have you actually ridden? I'm thinking it's a lot more than people would guess. Are there any other YouTubers you think tested more? Q&A video is an awesome idea. Thank you, Brad, for that. That's a great question, and not one I thought about. I mean, I have ridden a lot of bikes now. I've never actually added them up, so I'm afraid I can't answer your question. But it's got to be in the hundreds, isn't it? Maybe one day I should add them up. With regards, has anybody, other YouTubers ridden more than me? I'm sure they are. I'm sure Rob, Moto Bob, I'm sure he has now, because he rides pretty much everything that comes out. I don't. So yeah, and other YouTubers generally that do reviews, they've probably ridden more than me. But certainly, yeah, I've ridden a lot of bikes now. I would think it's in the hundreds. I usually, once you've ridden a few different types, you get a bit of an idea, don't you, for whether you like a bike or not, and you can quickly assess actually what a bike's about, even if you've got no particular skills. As I often say, I'm no expert on motorcycles, but I have ridden a lot of different bikes now, and that in itself does give you some sort of value, particularly for people that are looking to buy bikes and want to know, comparisons, particularly not the minor engineering and technical nuances, but actually what does it feel like to ride this bike? How heavy is it to move in and out of your garage? That sort of thing. How comfortable is it? Those basic things. So it's quite useful having ridden lots of bikes for that purpose. But no, I don't actually know, Brad, I'm afraid, how many I've ridden. Maybe I should add them up. It's certainly in the hundreds. My guess would be somewhere between 500 and 700. That might be wildly wrong. I'll work it out someday. I'll report back. Right, a few more, then we'll wrap it up, because I think we're coming up to about an hour, if I'm correct. One from Plymouth Jana. Hello, Plymouth Jana. Another person that writes in frequently. Great Q&A. Quick question for next time. I remember your first tour video, which I believe was called Tour de France many years ago. Wow, you have been watching for a long time. It was that. My question is, do you ever watch these old videos again yourself, and do you find people still view the older stuff of years gone by? Keep up the great work. Yes, and yes is the simple answer to that. I don't watch my old videos that often. Every now and then I might stumble across them and think, oh, I'll just watch that back. Not very often, though, to be fair. But people do continue to watch them. Again, that particular one, which was from years and years ago, wasn't it, with my mate Dominic on my old Triumph Tiger 1050, and he was on his Benelli. Great trip. We had a great fun. It does still get views. In fact, I had some comments on that one a couple of weeks ago. Not many. I mean, a tour like that probably gets 1 or 2 views a week, so it's not a lot. But again, it depends. So things like the Norway tour continues to get views. That gets, a few hundred views a week. And lots of the other videos, not just tours, but old videos generally get views. So particularly bike reviews, which is why they're so good for channels, because if you get loads of bike reviews in your back catalogue, people keep watching those. So it just kind of keeps inflating up. So those are excellent things to have in your library, as it were. But yeah, people do watch stuff from years gone by. Because of course people buy second-hand bikes, don't they? So they might watch a review you did when the bike was new because they want to buy one second-hand. Thanks for the question. Right, next, my life after stroke. Sorry to hear that. Hope things are going okay. Another great bike review. This is the BMW 1600 GTL. Sorry you didn't like it due to the weight, but I get your point with these big cruisers. It wasn't that I didn't like it. I didn't like the weight, but it is a great bike, but just not for me as a shorty. While you were talking about being afraid of dropping the bike, it got me thinking, have you ever had a crash? Maybe one for your Q&A. Cheers, Duncan. Thanks, Duncan, for the question. Have you ever had a crash? Yes, is the answer. Who hasn't? If you don't crash, you're not trying hard enough, have you? I'm very fortunate to say nothing ever serious. I've probably dropped all my bikes at some point. I'm just trying to think if there's any I haven't dropped. Well, there's two types of people, aren't there? Those that have dropped their bikes and those that are going to. I haven't dropped my Goldwing yet, but I'm sure that's only a matter of time. I've certainly dropped the GS once or twice, at least twice I can think of, and all the others I think I have as well. Actually, I haven't dropped the Enfield. What else? Just looking through. I haven't dropped the little Suzuki either, the 125. Okay, but I've dropped the others. So mostly drops. The only, when you say accidents, crash, you said, the only one where I actually impacted a car was on my CRF 250. I was between green lanes, going up a slippery lane on my knobbly tyres. A car came around the corner. I was probably going slightly faster than I should. I grabbed a handful of brakes. My old CRF 250L that I had didn't have ABS or anything like that. Front just washed from under me, and into the front of the car I went, who luckily braked and stopped. No harm done. It was just one of those, bit bruised, nothing properly broken. And then I did come off the Zero DSR, the electric bike as well. Again, front wheel, well, actually the back wheel slid out. That was just due to lack of no traction control, and I overdid the revs, and that came from under me. Some minor damage on the bike, no damage to me, touch wood. So that's it, really. Nothing major. Let's hope it stays that way. Let's hope we haven't talked anything up now, but thanks for the question. Quickly moving on. This is from Angus Neville. Love the bike tours, biker scrans, bike news, well, all of it really. Keep it coming, Andy. Thank you, Angus. Very kind of you to say so. Question for your next YQA. What % of your time is actually riding/reviewing bikes compared to planning, editing, filming, etc.? Just so we can appreciate how much effort you put in. Well, I'm always batting on about how much time I spend doing this, aren't I? But I love it, so don't feel sorry for me. But in terms of percentage of actual riding versus everything else, you may be surprised how small a percentage that is. And actual filming as well. I would say I probably film every 3 days, something like that, to keep the 2 videos a week going. But I'm doing stuff all day, every day on the channel. And then on the days when I'm filming, it's still only a small portion of the day. So for argument's sake, say it's a typical bike review. I do a load of research beforehand to try and, understand a bit about the bike. I try and avoid reading other reviews or anything like that because I want to give my views, but I do obviously look at the specification stuff online on the manufacturer's website. So I'll write down that. I'll think about the basic shape of the video. I won't write a script, but I'll do an outline of it, how I'm going to do it, and which bits. There might be some key bits I want to put in, so I'll sort of storyboard it. So before I even get the bike, there's probably 3 or 4 hours work there. The actual review itself probably takes me no more than an hour and a half to film. Then editing is probably, if it's a bike review, anything up to a full day editing. And then there's the uploading and then the answering comments after it's gone up, which is another couple of days. So in terms of proportion, if you're just looking at bike reviews, it's probably 5% of your time, maybe even less than that. And then if you're looking at tours, probably a similar proportion actually. I would say less than 5% of my time is actually spent recording and riding a bike. In my mind, I'm thinking I'm riding a bike 3 to 4% of my time, which is pitifully small, isn't it? In fact, I ride bikes now less than I did before I YouTubed. Before I YouTubed, I'd go out absolutely every day on my bike. I'd make sure, because it was a break from work, I'd go out on my bike and have a ride to clear my head. And I would go out for, maybe an hour. I'd have a lunch hour and just go out for a ride for an hour. Now I try and get out every day, particularly in the summer, but it's probably only for half an hour. And I don't get out every day either because I'm usually snowed under. So yeah, it's one of those... unintended consequences of doing this is I actually ride less now than I used to. But anyway, I hope that answers your question, Angus. All right, last one for this time then, because I think we've gone on for nearly an hour now, and I'm sure you've got other things to do. We will do another one of these, though, so thank you for all your questions. Stick any more you've got in the Q&A below. If I haven't answered your question, apologies. I'll try and get to it next time. Don't despair. I haven't lost your question. Anyway, last one from Veteran Gunner. Love this addition to the channel. Might be better for folks who are asking questions to just say, first of all, their name and their town or county. Oh, yeah, that's why I left this one to last. That's Rich Harrison from Cumbria. So yeah, if you are going to leave a question for the next Q&A, can you say what your first name is and whereabouts you are, either the county if you're in the UK or what country you're in? It would be great if I could say, oh, this is from David from Bolton or whatever. That is a nice touch. I like that, rather than me reading out sometimes some of these rather strange names. So yeah, that's brilliant. All right, so thank you, Rich, for that. Thank you to everybody else that sent in a question this time. Hope you found that of interest again. Hope I haven't whittled on too long. And let's hope, evenings are drawing out a bit now. Let's hope the weather's going to start to brighten up. We can get out on our bikes again. And I will bring you another YQA again in the not too distant future. All right, that's it for this time. Look forward to speaking to you again soon. Until then, this has been the Missing and Fly. Cheerio.